Hello. Today we're going to talk about a topic that used to frequent my mind a lot when I was younger, and one that I've also heard from many women coming to me asking me for advice of how to handle it because it's coming up for them. So today's topic is what to do when you are getting triggered by somebody who's maybe copying what you're doing, or it feels like they're competing with what you're doing, trying to do that but like be better at it, and then maybe it's even making you start to feel like you have to do that or you have to compete. Maybe it's giving you anxiety, maybe it's making you resentful, and overall you're like, how do I stop caring about this, because it is making me anxious, it's pulling me into this competitive cycle, and overall it's putting your nervous system in a constant low-grade state of alert. You're watching what they're doing now, you're comparing yourself, and maybe you're feeling behind. That is exhausting, and it's not surprising that you would want out of that. And I think something important is, when this used to come up for me, I would talk to a therapist or something, and the advice you always hear is like, well, it's flattery, right? Like if someone's mimicking you, it's flattery. Just take it as a compliment. And that's not always the answer you need to hear. It's not that simple always. And today we're going to look at maybe what's going on a little deeper, because at the end of the day, copying or trying to be like somebody really isn't that big of a deal. I mean, look at influencers, right? They have millions of girls copying their exact outfits and wanting to be just like them, and they got into this hobby, that looks like fun, I want to try it. That's inspiration. So they're inspiring people. So if you really boil it down to that, it isn't that big of a deal, and it's something you should be proud of. But when it hits deeper and it triggers something in you, that's where we're going to go today. So it's likely touching something a little deeper in you if it's bothering you. It could be a fear that you're not enough unless you're quote unquote winning. It could be a belief that you've had for a long time that your value is tied to being exceptional. Or it could be old wounds about being unseen or overshadowed. These inner patterns get triggered when someone tries to one-up us. The pain, though, that you're feeling, it's not about them. It's about the stories that you then tell yourself when it happens. So, how do you stop caring? You can't just force yourself not to care, and you don't need to. You just need to build a boundary between their journey and whatever they have going on and your own worth. Because it's likely that they are having a lot of these same triggers or core wounds as well, and that's why they're maybe in this place that they feel like they have to compete or copy or one-up somebody. So some simple steps you can do is to first name what is yours and what is theirs. You can feel proud of yourself, curious, and excited about what you're doing without making it a contest. When you notice somebody competing or mimicking you, just pause and remind yourself that it is about them and not yourself. The second thing you can do is recenter your why. So if you catch yourself doing something to try to prove that you're the better one, ask yourself, would I still want this if nobody saw it? And that's something I do a lot to kind of check myself. Like if I never posted this or nobody knew about it besides me, is this still something that I would want to do? And the key here is that real motivation feels expansive, but when you're competing, it feels tight. Third thing you can do is to create a subtle distance or redirect the energy. So you could talk to this person directly, but if that doesn't feel safe, you can shift the dynamic with them. You can limit what you're sharing with them if it gets used against you, or you can start spending more time with people who don't make you feel like a scoreboard. The last thing that I would suggest is practicing self-trust and quiet confidence. So real confidence doesn't need a broadcast. You can go ahead and let them win the loud contest, let them yell and scream about what they're doing, post it on the internet, whatever. But you can still be grounded in your deeper purpose. So we're going to explore a little bit. I'm going to give you just some questions to think about, to explore where this might have shown up earlier in your life, where this trigger might be coming from. So if you think back on your life, do you remember a time where you felt like somebody was always just ahead of you, or that you had to earn your worth through achievement, or that being yourself wasn't enough unless it was impressive? This dynamic you're experiencing with this person or people might be echoing something from your past. It could be a sibling, or maybe a parent that praised performance instead of just your presence, or even like a classroom or culture in general that rewarded this competition over rewarding connection. Oftentimes those will lead to us, when we're younger, internalizing messages like, I have to prove that I'm special to be loved, or if somebody else shines, there's less light for me, or they'll only notice me if I'm the best. And those beliefs start to live in our body. So when somebody is trying to quote unquote outdo you, it doesn't just bother you. It actually activates a survival response. So your nervous system is like, oh my God, I'm falling out of worth. I have to catch up. But that's not the truth. Your worth is not up for comparison. You don't have to prove your place. And being grounded in exactly who you are, regardless of who's watching you, is way more powerful than quote unquote winning. If you want to dive in a little bit further to see maybe specifically something that could have triggered this for you, or like the exact moment, the first time you felt like this, I'm going to go ahead and give a few more examples. But if not, I hope that this video was super helpful today. So here's some more examples. So ask yourself, when was the first time that I remember feeling like I had to prove myself to be enough? Just try to remember that first time. Maybe you got a grade and then you looked to your neighbor to see if somebody else got a better one. Or maybe you were doing something cool and then you heard, oh, your brother did that too. Maybe you felt invisible unless you were outperforming others. Maybe you were hearing subtle or not so subtle comparisons from one of your parents, a teacher, a friend. Maybe a sibling was the smart one or the successful one. You were always trying to catch up or find your own place. Maybe a parent only praised you when you achieved something, good grades, good at sports, a trophy, recognition, not just when you were being yourself. Maybe you got compared to your cousins, your neighbors, or one of your friends or your family members' friends. Maybe you were always the responsible one who was expected to perform and keep it together, and others were allowed to just be. Maybe in school you had an example of you did well on a project and the teacher casually then pointed to somebody else who they thought did even better. Maybe you worked really hard for something and nobody even noticed, especially when somebody did it louder. Maybe you got picked last, overlooked, laughed at, even though you were trying really hard. This could be something that happened at school that had to pertain to academics, sports, recess, or even just popularity or being accepted. Maybe you were trying really hard and it wasn't enough, or it was overlooked. Another one is being in gifted programs or sports teams where the culture was telling you, be the best or you're irrelevant. You might have had childhood friends. Someone was always trying to have better toys, better vacations, better clothes, and adults kind of just laughed it off. Maybe you shared something vulnerable or exciting with a friend when you were younger, and they responded by just shifting the focus back to themselves. Maybe you got left out or talked over unless you brought something that was super impressive to the table. And then culturally, maybe you were part of a community or culture that emphasized perfection or performance or success. Maybe you felt like you had to represent or prove yourself on behalf of a group, like if you were the only one, quote unquote, in a space. Or internalizing social messages that your natural self wasn't valuable unless it was polished, successful, or admirable. So if any of these triggered just like a core memory of when you first started feeling like this, that's good. Healing starts when we can start to see our reactions as flaws and recognize how to replace those with responses that are more aligned with where we want to be. So when you think back to this experience that we just went through, ask yourself, what did I believe about myself in that moment? Maybe it was, I'll never be good enough. Maybe it was, I'm only lovable if I succeed. My worth depends on what others think about me. There's not enough space for me to shine. And maybe write this down. The next step is to give that younger you validation. So it's going to be a little emotional, but this is where some people call it reparenting, but you're going back to that younger version of yourself and you're giving them what they needed. They weren't wrong for feeling hurt or feeling anxious. They were doing their best in a world that made love and safety feel conditional. So you could try writing a letter to that version of yourself from your current self. Or you could just say out loud or in your head, tell them you didn't deserve to be compared, you were always enough. Or you could visualize holding or standing beside your younger self and offering them compassion, whatever they needed. Next is to challenge that old belief. So is this belief still true today? Who would I be without it? And then try to replace it with something that is true and that is kind. Like, I don't have to prove myself to have value, or my success is not threatened by anybody else's, or I'm already enough, whether it is seen or it is not. And sometimes it doesn't feel genuine at first, and that's okay. As you keep repeating this, it will help rewire and imprint that in your brain. Then we can try creating a new pattern. So next time that someone's doing this and you feel triggered, pause and check in with yourself and ask, what part of me is being activated right now? Is this really mine to carry, or does this belong to an old story? And then how do I want to respond to this person from the part of me that knows that I'm enough? And this pause and this little thought process that you can do will help you respond from your new healed self, not your old wounded self. And lastly, just surround yourself with non-competitive energy. Spend time with people who celebrate you without comparison, people who see you and not just what you do. That nervous system safety will start to reinforce your healing, and having people around you like that is only going to help you get there faster. So I hope that this was helpful today. If you guys have questions, go ahead and just drop it in the comments, or we can create a follow-up video based on anything else.